In this problem, we're going to work exercise 6-9. It's on page 281, and it's the first problem you're going to work in your homework for week 2. So in this problem, we're going to look at variable and absorption costing, and we're going to look at how that impacts your net income. So here's your information. Some great cost accountant has figured out some of this information for us, and we're going to use that. There's also a few assumptions we need to know. So we've got year 1 and year 2, right? First year and second year, and this is their first year of operation, so there's no beginning inventory in the first year. So they produced 50,000 and sold 40,000, so that's going to leave us 10,000 for the second year. And the second year it produced 40,000 and sold 50. So they sold everything, and the whole way through they're selling it for 60 per unit. All right. And so what we're going to do is assume variable costing, what's the unit product cost, and what's the income statement, and do the same thing for absorption. And then we're going to reconcile them part 3. All right. Well, so I have a paper kind of prepared with ready for us to write down our answers. So 1A is compute the unit product costs for year 1 and year 2. So I kind of set up a little chart here. All right. So the direct materials, there you go, it's $25. And that's not changing in the different years. Direct labor per unit is 15. Yeah, 15. And that variable manufacturing overhead is 5. So in both of these years, we have a variable cost per unit of 45. All right. So now we're ready to do our income statement. So income statement starts with sales revenue. Sales is in the first year is 50,000, right? So 50,000, and we sell them for 60. 50 times 60. Oh, I'm sorry, we sold 40. We sold 40. So 4 times 6 is 24. All right, and in year 2 we sell the 50, right? So 50, 5 times 6 is 30. All right, so there's your revenues. That doesn't change whether you're doing variable or absorption. Revenue is price per unit times number of units sold. So our expenses are variable cost of goods sold. So we figured out it's $45. And per unit sold, so 45 times 40,000 the first year. That's 1 million. That's 1,800,000. And over here we sell 50,000, so 50 times 45, 2250, yeah. All right. Variable selling and administrative is $2 each. Oh, there we go. $2. So 2 times 40,000 is 80,000, and 2 times 50,000 is 100,000, right? So total variable expenses, 1.8 million plus 80,000 is 1,880,000, and that is 2,350,000. So the contribution margin, sales minus expenses, $500 20,000, and 3 million minus 2.35 is 650,000. So there's our contribution margin. We have to take out our fixed manufacturing overhead and administrative expenses, so that's 250 and 80. Same thing each year. And so that makes my total fixed expenses. If I had 250 plus 80, that's 330 each year. And so take this out of the contribution margin. So 520 minus 330 is 190. So take contribution margin minus fixed expenses, leaves me with 190,000. And contribution margin minus fixed expenses, 650 minus 330, leaves me with that's 190,000, and that's 320. All right. So our under variable costing, year 1 net income is 190,000. Year 2 net income is 320,000. So that's part 1, done A and B. Now we're going to do the exact same thing but with absorption costing. All right. So we've still got our 25. We've still got our 5. We've still got our 15 for the labor, 25 for the materials, 15 for the labor, 5 for the variable manufacturing overhead. But what we have to figure out here now is the fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. Right? So that's based on the total manufacturing overhead, fixed manufacturing overhead, and divide it by the number of units you produce. So it's going to change slightly, right? In the first year, we produced 50,000 units. And in the second year, we produced 40,000 units. So we're going to have different fixed manufacturing overhead per unit, right? So you take the $250, right? Our fixed manufacturing overhead, 250. You take that 250 and you divide it in the first year by 50,000, right? And in the second year, so by 40,000, because it's all you made. So direct materials, still 25. Nothing different there. Direct labor, still 15. Variable manufacturing overhead is still 5. Right? And now here's where we do something a little different. Right? So over here, that's where we stopped, variable costing. But now we're going to, in full absorption, we're absorbing that fixed overhead in. So we have to figure out this on a per unit basis. So this one is in year 1, we produced 50,000, right? So we have to take that 250, right, our overhead, and divide it by 50,000, and of course 25 divided by 5 is 5. So this is $5 per unit. In year 1, we still had 250,000 of costs. The difference is we're only dividing it by 40,000, right? Because that's all we produced in year 2. So 250,000 divided by 40,000 ends up being $6.25, right? So we add all these up, right? Our absorption cost per unit is 50 in the first year and 51.25 in the second year. Okay, so, you know, slightly different there. So now we're going to go, and here we did our income statement and ended up with net operating income of 190 and 320. So we're going to do the same thing here, but this time with our fixed manufacturing overhead absorbed into my cost of goods sold. So sales revenue is always the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're doing absorption or variable. It's just your price per unit times the number of units. So sales, I'm just going to take it from here. 2.4 million and 3 million. So same. Okay, so cost of goods sold is your number of units produced times your cost per unit, right? So, not the number of units produced, your number of units that you sold times your cost per unit, right? So in year one, we produced them for 50,000 each. We sold 40,000, right? So 40,000 times 50. Oh, sorry, it's 20. So that's 2 million. Right? So of course, sales minus cost of goods sold equals gross margin. So my gross margin is 400,000. And all I take out after that is my selling and admin expenses. And then I get my gross margin minus 160 is equal to 240. All right. Next. So cost of goods sold works a little different here. Okay, so this is one of those tricky parts. All right, let's come down here. All right, so cost of goods sold is based on the number of units you sold, right? Well, we sold 50,000 units. 40,000 of them were the 51.25 cost per unit, and 10,000 of them were the ones left over from year one at 50 per unit. So we have to take 50 times 10,000, and that's $50,000. I'm sorry, 500,000. And then we manufactured 40 in the year where it was costing us 51.25. So 40 times, 51.25 times 40 is equal to 205. So you add those and you get, 2,050,000. 2,050,000 plus 500,000. So 2,500,000. Right. So 50 times 10,000 is 500,000. 51.25 times 40,000 is 2,050,000. And you add these up and you get 2,005,000. So you take 3 million, subtract 2,550, and you get your gross margin of 450,000. You're selling it at administrative of 180. 450,000 minus 180 is equal to 270. All right. Next, explain the difference between variable costing and absorption costing. So that means we're going to do this reconciliation, right? Where we reconcile, we figure out how much cost is absorbed into the inventory, and we use that to adjust the difference between the two net incomes. All right. So in this reconciliation, we are going to we had to figure out how many units are in our ending inventories, right? And in our beginning inventories for the next year, right? So in year one, it was their first year in operation, so they had no beginning inventory, right? Plus units produced, so we know they produced 50,000, and we know they sold 40,000, right? So that means their ending inventory is 10,000, right? So last year's ending inventory is the next year's beginning inventory. So in year two, the beginning inventory is 10,000. They told us they produced 40,000. We know that they sold 50,000. So that means our ending inventory now is 0. All right. So how much overhead is in this inventory, right? So basically, well, how much of that fixed manufacturing overhead that when we did variable didn't get in to the cost per unit, but when we did absorption it did? Well, we can see that and we know it's $5 per unit, right? So 10,000 units times 5 means there's 50,000 in overhead in that ending inventory there, right? They didn't have any beginning inventory, right? So the manufacturing overhead that got deferred to the next year was $50,000. All right, now we do the same things here. So over here, they have no ending inventory, right? And we had 50,000 in our beginning inventory, right? Our beginning inventory is this 10,000, right? So, I guess so. So 0 minus 50 is 50,000, right? Okay. So here's where that difference comes in, right, between these two. So we take our variable costing net operating income, which is 190,000 and 320,000. So we're going to reconcile these, right? So in the first year we had 190,000, and in the second year we had 320,000. And so now we're going to add our fixed overhead that was released. Well, there was none. There was 50,000 here, right? This is manufacturing overhead, right? So that went over there. So we take the 190 and the 50, that's 240. Right? And that matches that. All right? So 320, we had 50,000 released now, right? That came out. It's like we sold it so that it was released into our cost of goods sold, if you want to look at it like that. 320 minus 50 is equal to 270. And as you can see, that's 270. So we've reconciled our variable net income to our absorption. And of course the difference being what was captured in the overhead and sitting there in inventory till it was sold. All right, well, good luck on that stuff.